Moors. Salvation, Allah, Unity, the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Divine Constitution and Bylaws. Act 1. The Grand Sheikh and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheikh is to assist the Grand Sheikh in all affairs if he or she lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and it is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Act 2. All meetings are to be opened promptly according to the Circle 7 and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday the first man was formed in the flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended unto Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion at all that may harm his brother or sister because Allah is love. Act 4. All members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Act 5. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws of and the Constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of the said government and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Ali, the Prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey their father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Ali, through the guidance of his father, God Allah. Islam. Now, for those who have the Moorish guide, we can continue on to the Moorish questions. The Quran questions for Moorish children. And it's also the answer and question period time. So if anyone has answers on the one-on-ones or would like to build on the one-on-ones, please raise your hand and you will be able to exercise your 5 senses. One, who made you? Allah. 2, who is Allah? Allah is the Father of the universe. 3, can we see him? No. 4, where's the nearest place we can meet him? In the heart. 5, who is Noble Ali? He is Allah's prophet. 6, what is a prophet? A prophet is a Allah manifested in flesh. 7, what is the duty of a prophet? Save the nation from the wrath of Allah. 8, who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America? Noble Ali. 9, what year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? 1913 AD. 10, where? Newark, New Jersey. 11, where was Noble Ali born? 12, what is his nationality? Moorish American. 13, what is your nationality? Moorish American. 14, why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants of Moorish America. 15, for what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded? For the uplifting of fallen humanity. 16, how did the Prophet begin to uplift the Moorish American? By teaching them to do themselves. 17, what is our religion? Islamism. 18. Is that a new or is that an old time religion?
Old time religion.
19. What kind of flag is the Moorish?
It's a red flag with a 5-pointed green star in the center.
20. What do the 5 points represent?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
21. How old is our flag?
It's over 50,000 years old.
22. Which is our holy day?
Friday.
23. Why?
Because Friday is the day on which man was found flesh. And it was on Friday when he acquired
24. Who is Jesus?
the prophet of God.
25. Where was he born?
On Bethlehem, Judah, in the house of David.
26. Who were his father and mother?
Joseph and Mary.
27. Will you give in brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came?
Some of the great fathers which Jesus came, Abraham, Jesse, Solomon, and Joseph and Mary.
28. Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth?
To save the Israelites from the iron hand oppression of the Palestinians Palestine at the time.
Islam. 29. How long has that been?
About 2,000 years ago.
30. What was the nationality of Ruth?
Ruth was a Moabitess.
31. What is the modern name for Moabites?
Moroccans.
32. What is the Moroccan Empire?
Northwest Mexico.
33. What is the modern name for Mexam?
Africa.
34. What is the title given to our ruler in Morocco?
Sultan.
35. Where do we get the name Jesus?
From the east.
36. What does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
37. Did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name?
Yes, but it cannot be used by those who slave the saints.
38. What is an angel?
An angel is the word of Allah manifested in the flesh.
39. What are angels for?
To carry messages to the world, all nations.
40. What is our prophet to us?
He is an angel of Allah, sent to us to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah.
41. What is the everlasting gospel?
It is a saving power that comes from Allah through our ancient fathers by his prophets.
42. What is the covenant of the great Allah?
Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the earthland, which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee.
43. At what age did Jesus begin to teach?
At the age of 12,
44. Where did he teach?
India, Africa, and Europe.
45. How long did he teach?
18 years.
46. What did Jesus say that would make you free?
Truth.
47. What is truth?
Truth is ought.
47. What is ought?
Ought is Allah.
49. Can truth change?
Truth cannot change or pass away.
50. What other names do we give truth?
Holy breath.
51. What have you to say about holy breath?
All we can say is it is great, it is good, it was, it is, and evermore to be. Amen.
52. At what place on earth was the physical part of man formed?
In the Garden of Eden,
53. Where is the Garden of Eden?
in the land of Canaan, in the city of Mecca.
54. What is the modern name for the Garden of Eden?
Mecca.
55. What is the name of the first physical man?
His name cannot be used only by the executive rulers of the AC of the MST of A.
56. What are the words of AC of the MST of A?
Agate Chamber of the Moorish Science Temple of America, third heaven.
57. Who were Adam and Eve? 58. Where did they go?
They went into Asia.
59. What is the modern name given to the children?
Asiatics.
60. Who is guarding the holy city of Mecca today to keep unbelievers away?
Asiatics.
61. What is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatics.
62. What is the shade of their skin?
Olive.
63. Are the Moorish American any relation to those angels?
Yes. We all have the same father and mother.
Can anyone Islam, brother flying up?
Islam. I first arise and give praise to Allah, Father of the universe. I give honors to Noble Ali, honors to the Moorish flag, honors to the American flag, Honest to everyone here and honest to everything pertaining to Islam.
Islam. Honest to you.
That last question, as you hit on, do they have any? Yeah, are the North Americans any relation to those angels? Yes, we all have the same father and mother. Could you expound on that a little bit? Because one says fathers and mothers, and this one just said father and mother without a plural.
Islam. So let me go back to the 57. Who were Adam and Eve? They are the mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims. So they are the mothers and fathers of the human family. So now when we're dealing with humans on a fleshly bound or a fleshly concept, they are the mothers and fathers. They are the origin of fleshly humans. But now when it refers to 63, are the Moorish American any relation to those angels? Yes, we all have the same father and mother, meaning creator, origin, right? Now, it's just like it would be no difference between a so-called Moorish American and a so-called black person. No matter what you want to say about you, we still have the same creator. Our origins are still the same. Whether we're dealing with higher self or lower self, our creator is still the same. We're all endowed by the same creation. Islam. Islam, brother Mudali.
First, I rise, give praise to Allah, honors to Noble Drew Ali, and to the Grand Sheikh, the Sheikhist, and to all that is present here today, and all that pertains to Islam.
Islam, honestly.
My question is back at question 51. At the end of 51, it says, Amen.
Mm-hmm.
My question is it Amen or Amen?
If you want to go to the proper pronunciation, it would be Amen. Amen, Amin. Those are more ancient dialects than Amen.
Okay.
So Amen is a more new or modernized term of Amen or Amin.
So,
If you're coming from like a more ancient, either Hebrew or like an Arabic tongue, it would be Amin or Amen, not Amen.
okay. So is it correct then to assume that Amen is referring to a man, an individual,
Like,
whereas Amen is a way of speaking, I think, in the high authority.
well, it's more as far as my understanding on Amen, it's more of a so it be,
Right.
so that it is kind of concept. But we can always go back into the record and so take my personal my perspective on it. Well, let's just find out exactly what it is.
I did a study and
Mm-hmm.
I found that Amen was said after the Christian, the Catholic, and other religious denominations, which meant they were referring to a specific individual. They were giving homage to a specific individual when they said Amen.
Like Amen.
Yes. Everything was being, they were honoring a particular king or ruler or emperor or something like that to say Amen.
No, I don't think that's I don't think that's the quite definition of that word. Islam. You wanna? Islam. Honestly.
Just from some studies also that I have done, from what I understand, that a man, common word, how we speak it,
Yes.
how we speak it, but it is relative to Amun Ra, which
Right.
in Pharaoh of some sort. So there was probably a pronunciation difference,
Mm-hmm.
but it was relative to.
Islam.
Exactly.
Islam.
That's the ruler in which I was speaking of. I just didn't have his name in my head, but it was like giving homage to him. And all of those religious institutions, they all say Amen at the end of a prayer, which takes it completely from the contents of Allah
Mm-hmm.
and puts all of the emphasis on. I can't say his name again.
Amun Ra.
Yeah. And so that's why I was saying Is it proper to say amen or amen?
I would say amen. Now let's give it a definition out of the Universal World's Dictionary, unabridged.
Islam. Amen. In signing and in ritualistic service, men. It's a noun from classical Latin, amin. Then it says Greek is amin. Hebrew is amin. Truly, certainly. Then it says a term, this is definition number 1, a term used in scripture to denote Christ. These things saith the amen, the faithful and true witness. Revelations 3, verses 14. 2, an expression of formal assent, concurrence, or conviction. 3, the conclusion in word or act, the end. And this is the definition number 2 of amen. This is amen 2. Adverb and interjective. 1, so be it. Used an expression or verity. No, used in it, so be it. Used as an expression or hearty assent or formal confession of faith, Islam. Also as the formal conclusion of prayers, etc. 2, truly, verily. Number three, amen. Verb transitive, to assent, to or concur in, to sanction, to say amen, to conclude.
Okay. Thank you.
So to conclude from a prayer or a scripture, but again, to go back to what I said to explain what so it be it so, in conclusion. And if you're still correct in the sense of Amen Ra, because you're really still talking about yourself, even if you're talking about the Christ, which is just the Christian or those who carry the light, which is us, anyhow. So just taking it from its Christian perspective, or just making it a Jesus thing, to really it's a universal term. It's like,
Okay.
Brother Monel, you're welcome, brother.
Islam, I rise and give praise to Almighty Allah. I give high honors to our Prophet Noble Ali. Honor to everyone here. Honor to everything that pertains to Islam. From the information that I have gathered on the term Amin or Amen, Amin Ra was just considered as a deity.
Mm-hmm.
But to take word to a deeper meaning and a deeper understanding, the term Amen is actually given reference to when the ancient Egyptians had to give it to all, the one source, instead of each separate deity. So it all goes back to the one, which is another form of saying Allah.
Islam. I like it.
Islam. I had heard from an elder. I know man doesn't know by being told alone, but the elder Fahim Bey gave me a reference. He said that in ancient times, people would say Amen or Amen, and like say they wanted to manifest something, they would say Amen, and it was like a manifest in front of them. And I also had another reference from Sheikh Sufi was Amen. It was like Allah, Moses, Elohim, and Noah. So that's what he told me that it meant, like abbreviated.
Islam. So again, man knows not by being told. So just to give it like a straight, clear conception of what it is, and the reference to say in the conclusion of a prayer of a holy script, right? So if I say Allah is my protector, my salvation, and my God, Amen. What I'm doing is I'm tying myself to my creator, and Amen is so it be it so, meaning the will of myself is put into my creator. If this is what I say of how I feel about my creator, then as someone give it, so take it. It's a back, vice versa kind of arrangement that we have here with Allah. It's not a one-way street. It's a two-way street. So Amen is be it so, so it be. Islam. And in fact, let's even read 51 just so you can really put it in perspective. What have you to say about holy breath? All we can say is that it is great, it is good, It was, it is, and evermore to be. Be it so, so it be. Islam. Islam. I believe we are on 64. Give 5 names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast.
65. What is the devil sometimes called?
The lower self.
66. How many selves are there?
2.
67. Name them.
Higher self and lower self.
68. What people represent the higher self?
The angels who protect the holy city of Mecca.
69. What people represent the lower self?
Those who were cast out of the holy city and those who accept their teachings.
Now, from 68 and 69, wouldn't that be like Moorish Americans and blacks? Which is also in the Quran what they say in the distinction of the angels and the Asiatics. So you see those as multiple unfoldments that we fell from. But first we was, even before black and Moorish American, we was acknowledged as angel, Asiatic, Moorish American, black. So how we keep falling? 68. What people represent the highest self?
The angels who protect the holy city of Mecca.
Islam. 69. What people represent the lower self?
Those who were cast out of the holy city and those who accept their teachings.
70. What is the highest self?
The higher self, the mother of virtues, and the
Harmonies of life,
the great justice,
mercy,
mercy,
love,
love,
and
and
righteousness.
righteousness.
71. Can the higher self pass away?
No,
72. Why?
because it is Allah and man.
73. What does the lower self breed?
Hatred, slander, lewdness, murders, theft, and everything that harms.
74. What did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him?
Where are you going, Satan?
75. What was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self?
I am going to and fro the earth, seeking who I may devour.
76. As he finished his task of devouring.
Yes,
77. When was his time declared out?
when he nailed Jesus to the cross.
78. What were the last words that Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
79. What did we have reference to?
We have reference to the end of Satan.
80. Did Jesus say he returned to conquer him?
Yes.
81. What is the name of the person into whom Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad, the conqueror.
82. Was Satan to be bound in?
Satan was to be bound in part.
83. When was the head of Satan taken off?
1453, that's the time.
84. By whom?
By Muhammad.
85. Name some of the marks that were put upon the Moors of Northwest by the European nations in 1774.
Negro, black, colored, and Ethiopian.
86. Negro.
Negro, a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water.
87. What is meant by the word black?
Black, according to science, means death.
88. What does the word colored mean?
Color means anything that is painted, stained, varnished, or dyed.
89. What does Ethiopia mean?
Ethiopia means something divided.
90. Can a man be Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No,
91. Why?
because man is made in the image and after the likeness of God Allah.
92. What title does Satan give himself?
God.
93. Will you define the word white?
White means purity, purity means God, and God means the ruler of the land.
94. To whom do we refer at times as being the great God?
Allah.
95. Is the devil made in the image and likeness of Allah?
No, he is the shadow of our lower selves and will pass away.
96. Who made the devil?
Elohim.
97. Who is Elohim?
Elohim is the seven created spirits that created everything that was, is, and evermore to be.
98. What is Elohim sometimes called?
The seven eyes of Allah.
99. How many days are in a circle?
7 days.
100. How many days are in a creation?
7 days.
101. According to science, how many days are in a year?
7 days.
Islam. Any questions or statements before I stand off? Islam family. Next, I will call the Grand Sheikh of the temple up. That's 5 minutes. Oh, he still needs more time. So let's stay in the 101s because I actually have something else I wanted to ask before Brother Flying go. Oh, so that's what it was. Question 61 and the 101s. What is the modern name for those angels? So what's the difference between, and I kind of said it before, but if maybe someone could elaborate, what is the significance of the difference between angels and Asiatics? Why are they separated?
Um, um, the Holy Quran says that the angels, let me not paraphrase.
Because 57 was who and Adam and Eve. They are mothers and fathers of the human family, Asiatics and Muslims. Why not? Not the mother and father of just all Asiatics or just Muslims? Why both? What is the difference?
So what is the difference between
Asiatics and Muslims.
Asiatics and Muslims? Asiatics, I know Asia means like the mother.
Mm.
The mother, Asia, well the planet is Asia, and Asia would be a feminine aspect. And as the mother giving birth to the son, that would be, to me, is the attic, because attic is on the top of the head,
Mm.
or that would be man himself. Attic would be the man. So with that together would be like the mother and son aspect of the of what we see as physical reality, besides the the only reality, which is
I got you.
all in one.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, I see is for angels in chapter 1 it says, but man will regain, man will regain. That would be dealing with Asiatics. Man will regain his lost estate. So we're talking about different vibrations, like higher vibrations and a lower vibration, like the spiritual realm from which the higher self felt,
Mm-hmm.
and then the physical realm, which is our earthly salvation. Working our way to become perfect man, the circle, bound in righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
And then says here, but man will regain his lost estate, his heritage. Like we would regain our lost estate, which is our native plains, which we fell from, building ourselves back up. And then it says, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to do it within. It said, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold. So we have to suffer all of the temptations and the trials manifold and be able to go back up to where it was at, because we had a lower vibration and we're doing things not of our nature. Right? And then it says, but let him know that cherubim and seraphim, which are angels, that rule the stations of the sun and spirit of the mighty Allah. So the angels is they directing our path somewhat through the direction of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't fall, they didn't lose their stations, right? So it says, but let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and spirit of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guide. Just like when we do our prayer, that Allah is our protector and our guide, and He given them stations to hold us down now and to build us up in character. And then it said, and then they will lead to victory. So we have to we still got a connection with the angels, because that's a higher vibration of ourselves. And then as Asiatics, what we conduct ourselves with the mind, it would make us to go back to the oneness with Allah. That's how I perceive that. Asiatics and angels.
Gratitude, Brother Monel.
Yes, the distinction that I got between Asiatics and Muslims. First, Asiatics is the modern term for angels. And then if they are God in the holy city a Mecca to keep the unbelievers away with your angels, it would go back to show that they are the protectors. And since we descended from that, we don't carry the messages that was sent from Allah as the angels did. So, just to build with angels, the term angels is a thought of Allah manifested in human flesh.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have to go back to Adam and Eve, and they are the mothers and fathers of the human family. So
Islam. Good demonstration, brother. And just to conclude with the definition of Muslim, a noun, a true believer from Salama, to resign oneself to God, a name in use among Mohammedans. Muslim, pertaining to the Mohammedans or a Mohammedan. So that's that definition. Anyone else care to bid after Brother Monel? That was it? You said you had something? Oh, you was just laughing. Okay. That's it?
That we can respond to I think it's 81, if I'm not mistaken. It talks about what is the name of the person to whom Jesus was first incarnated,
Mm-hmm.
Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror. Just to try to marry it based off a Netflix show I was watching called The Rise of the Ottoman Empire. And they talked about the Sultan, Mehmed II, another name for Mehmed Muhammad, and how he was able to conquer Constantinople in 1453 the Byzantine Empire age.
Mm-hmm.
And a prophecy was revealed to him. He was losing hope, and a prophecy was revealed to him. And he was given reference to a red moon, which was a symbology in Islam to your enemies will be defeated. So on that day, he took his last soldiers to go rush Constantinople to take over the evil Christians who were governing a portion of that area at that time. Just marry that, because I wasn't sure what prophet he was talking about, but I know he was referenced as a prophet, even though he was a soldier.
Islam. So prophecies in general are one entity, meaning that, like I said, if you put off the back of your nationality card and we honor all divine, true and divine prophets, it's because that they are all representation of the same spirit. So when Allah, God Allah, the universe sends a prophet to save nations that look like them, that speak their language. So I can, like I said again, because really at the end of the day, let's get into a deeper science of who I am. And what I mean who I am is the spirit of myself. So you see me, Omari, this way, but this is not who I am. Meaning that, like I like to use the term of driving a car. So let's say this outside is a Ford and it's tinted windows. So you can't see who's driving the car. But if the car is moving, obviously somebody's driving it, right? But the car is not the spirit, right? Man is not the body nor the soul. So my body is a vessel. But the driver was the spirit. You cannot see me. I am inside of this vessel. And I'm tinted windows. So obviously if I'm moving, I'm here, I'm driving it, but you can't see me. I'm not the spirit. This is just the body that I'm using. So it's just like each prophet. That's just the body that they're using at that time, talking to those particular nations. But the inside, the driver is always the same. Islam.
Another name we give to truth is holy breath.
Mm-hmm.
And just to elaborate on holy breath is we are spirit man, and spirit is breath.
Islam.
So when we speak something divinely, I get what you're saying about the prophets holding that same breath.
Because again, how does Allah speak to man? Through man. But where do you hear him? Through it in the heart. So through your sincerity or your levels of sincerity is based on how deep you can hear Allah. And if you're a prophet, your vocals, your ears, you're always in tune. You're always listening to the ethers and the vibrations. Therefore, that same energy. So I myself, none of us are prophets here. We're followers of a prophet, but we're not a prophet because we're still taking our steps of trying to unfold and ascend back to Father God Allah. So there's a lot of work that we must do before we unfold and become closest we can to that perfect seed. But the prophet is already ordained. They're already on a high to bring the truth. Son, you ready, Grand Sheik?
True.
That would conclude my demonstration. Gratitude to the floor. And next, I will bring up Grand Sheik of the Temple, Lord Nature El Bay. Islam.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
Takbir.
Allahu Akbar.
What? Should I take what? Allah. Islam, Morse. Islam. Praise Allah for everybody. I want to rise in the nature of Allah, giving honors to the Most High, giving honors to you, myself, and all, which is Allah. Islam. Giving honors to our Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, the Savior of humanity. Giving honors to all of our beautiful women, mothers, and daughters, and children. Islam. Better? Islam. Islam more, so we're going to vibrate in unison as always. We're going to raise our thoughts to infinite wisdom for those that's not already there. We are going to camel back off of last week's lesson, last year's lesson, and the lesson of the age and ages, which is nationality. Islam. Nationality has several different variations, vibrations, and meanings. And we will never learn them in the physical to perfection. But we are here to strive to be members of the nation. Islam. Divine warning for the nation starts off the citizens of all free national governments. According to their national constitution, are all one family bearing one free national name. So the opening statement of the divine warning for the nations is specifically speaking to the nations, plural, including our nation. The name of our nation is, that's a question, you can answer it. It's not Flying Girl.
Moorish American.
It's not Moorish American, which is also termed our free national name. And I'm saying it like that because some of us get that confused. And if you ask someone their free national name, they will give you their individual name. Now, if you go back to the first statement again, it says the citizens of all free national governments, according to their free national constitution, are all one family bearing one free national name. So if you ask your free national name is the name that you share with your free nation, not your individual name, not your first name, not your nomen. So again, as man unfolds, as God unfolds. So we're going to keep climbing. So last week, I introduced to you the World Book Dictionary, which I'm going to come out of the same dictionary again because it's an international dictionary. So it's the international opinion because a dictionary just represents a nation's opinion. Like the Prophet Noble Drew Ali says, what is meant by the word? So when he's saying what is meant by the word, doesn't necessarily mean what does the word mean, but what's meant by the word is what do the senses or the consensus of the people acknowledge that word to mean. So that's going to vary and change according to nation state because it's opinionated. So what a word means in North America might be different from what the word means in Germany, just to throw that out. So we can't assume, we never assume. And whenever you making reference to a word and a meaning, you always, if it's in writing specifically, you always should leave that within your footnotes or glossary or index of where you're getting that reference from to that word. For advanced Moors that's doing documents, affidavits, and suits. And if you're signing someone else's contract, agreement, or application, you don't ever want to assume what they're saying or what is meant by a word that's on that application. Because you can get tricked into another opinion of that word because they didn't classify it. So again, we don't want to settle for the assumption of what Moorish means or what Moorish American means just because Drew Ali says so. We are to investigate that because man knows not by being told. So we want to know whose opinion, who acknowledges what do the world know Moors to mean? What does the world know Moorish to mean? What does the world know Moroccan to mean? Everything good? Islam. So last week we talked about nationality and nation state, which was defined in this world book or this world dictionary. So now we're going to transfer over to, because we understand what nation means now. Hopefully we do. We're going to transition into the word more. So we just went over to what we call the 101s. And the question was asked, why are we Moorish American? And what was your reply? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. So now we're going to break that down. We're going to break it all the way down. And we kind of went into it last week as well. Some of us say Moor is the bloodline. We're going to examine that. We have opinions of what Moor means. And then also the question is it Moroccan or is it Moor? What came first? Those are also questions that we might have. Some of us even dispute the term Moorish. I've heard people say, well, I'm not Moorish because I'm not a kind of Moor. So again, it's perception, but we're going to get into that. These are just questions, highlights, things that we put in to our mental state to move forward. So I'm going to start with the word Moorish. And I'm going to get the secondary opinion, which is the dictionary. I'm going to get their definition and we're going to build on it. We're going to keep cross-referencing back to our literature, our teachings. So Moorish, which is Moor, M-O-O-R, hyphen ish. Ish is I-S-H, which we know that, but we have children in here. So we want everybody to be simultaneously raised from this perspective. Also, in parentheses, they have it pronounced or spelled M-U-R apostrophe I-S-H, which is still Moorish. And you have seen, I'm sure you have seen displays of Moors spelling Moorish, M-U-U-R-I-S-H. So again, man knows not by being told. We're doing this so you can understand what others do or what yourself might do, just for more clarity, clear conception. Now this is as an adjective though. Let's not forget that. Because you could define something as a noun, you could define it as an adjective, and that might change the meaning a little bit. So Moorish as an adjective is of or like a Moor. 2, full of Moors or covered with Moors. So that's Moorish. Like a Moor, of a Moor, or full of Moors. So as an adjective describes a noun. So when you say the word Moorish, what you're doing is you're describing the subject matter, which is the Moor. So when we make reference to ourselves as Moorish American, then we're defining it or putting it in the part of speech of as an adjective, because you're describing the Moors. So ish, that's where the word ish or the suffix, ish is only a suffix, is added to the word Moor. So this is where you get the pronunciation of Moorish from. It means of, like, or pertaining to the Moors, or full of Moors. So Moorish is plural when you make a reference to a group of Moors, more than one Moor. So we're in a Moorish science temple of America, which means that according to the definitions we just heard, the temple is full of Moors, which is true, is of Moors, and of means down from or descendant of Moors. So the people or the membership are descendants of the Moors, which is true as well. We are who our forefathers were without a doubt or contradiction.
Wow.
So the membership pertains to the descendants of the Moors. And the style of the Moors is another definition. So it was styled by Moors or designed by Moors. It could be another interpretation of that, which is still true. So let's get into this. So you have the root word more, and then you have ish, which is only a suffix. So the root word is more, and according to this definition, it's also in parentheses MUR. Now this is as a noun. So now you're talking from an individual perspective, singular, but also could be viewed as plural. But when you say more directly, you're making reference to the individual, as he is a more, or I am a more. Elohim, I want you to pay attention to this lesson, and I'm going to quiz you on it later. So as a noun, and a noun, Sister Pecola, what's a noun? Islam. Everybody, the children know that. Elohim, you know what a noun is? Islam. A member of the ethnic group of mixed Berber and Arab stock living in Northwest Africa. Now, most of you already know this because you looked up more in multiple dictionaries. Some of them, the word is in there, some of them are not. According to how old or how good the dictionary is, the definition could be convoluted, diluted, tampered with, colored. We understand all of that. So you're going to always get a different interpretation. Not that you need their interpretation to define you, but just as I use dictionaries mainly for teaching. But when you get a good dictionary, then you use it to teach with that. Teach those that don't know, or those who come to you and tell you that something means that. And you can show them, well, it just don't always mean that. So we talked about the word stock before when we was talking about classes, senses, and race in previous meeting. How they play around with the word stock. They say race means stock. So regardless of how you slice it up, if you're looking at race as meaning stock, if you want to go that route, then the answer is more. If you was forced into that type of conversation where you just want to make reference to something other than Asiatic, which is human, or the Asiatic race, which is human. But if you want to go from a stock perspective or a class, then the answer of that will be more. Now it says mixed Berber or Arab stock living in Northwest Africa. One-on-ones. Where is the Moroccan Empire? northwest of Mexum. So now we're dealing with the coordinates of northwest. So northwest of Mexum is the older or more ancient term of the land of northwest Africa, because Amexem is the true and divine name of Africa. So they're just making reference to a time frame, but it's still northwest Africa. But that's where the Moroccan Empire was seated. It doesn't mean that Moors was only in that area or region of northwest Africa. This again, where somebody can get tripped up by not understanding and looking at it as if you're not from the northwest Africa, then you're not a Moor. I heard people say that as well, especially people who are trying to define ancestry through ancestry.com. They want to make that argument. Well, it's saying my family is from southwest or northeast or whatever. Then according to the definition, they would try to say, well, they're not Moorish or they're not Moroccan. Not understanding in the Moroccan Empire makes reference to the seat of the rulership, not necessarily the inhabitants or where the people dwell. Moroccan Empire does not mean the citizens generally. It means more the administration of the nation or nations, plural. So when you hear the term the last stronghold of the Moroccan Empire or the Moors, they're making reference to the seat of government, the administration of government, the power or the governmental body of the nation. When they're not operating, they know that the people are just pretty much subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So there is no nation without its administration, is what that means to people from different nations and people who understand law. Everybody clear on that? It goes on to say that the Moors invaded and conquered Spain in the 700s and were finally driven out in 1492. We all heard that story. People get confused with that story. And they think that their Moors went into Spain in 700 AD, and that's not true. Moors was already there. But what they're making reference to, again, is the military of the Moors, of the Moroccan Empire, went into Spain to take over the present, or at that time, the present administration or rulership that was governing Spain at that time. But the citizens or inhabitants or the descendants of Moors were already there prior to the 700s. If you don't understand that, then you'll be thinking that the Moors went in there and took residence in 700 as if they were conquerors or colonizers, or like they were foreigners to Spain. And that's what history will tell you. His story. That's what he would tell you. And again, they didn't leave altogether in 1492. The government structure was, again, taken down in 1492. Then they said they were expelled from Spain as all the Moors had to get up and move, and that's not true. It's just making reference to the Moorish governmental body with its army was driven out. They were conquered, and then they moved further north. That's the only thing that represents. But their citizens, natives, so-called residents, Moorish inhabitants of Spain still lived there. They were just forced to come up under occupational rule. Those who stayed. Those that didn't want to get with that, then they moved out of the nation state. And then another thing behind it, going deeper, Spain wasn't always where it's located on the map right now. So that's a recolonized territory and region referred to as Spain in the location of where it's at now. But it was still part of North America now, but back then Northwest of Mexico in those days. The old French spelling of the word more is M-O-R-E, which we use every day, but to mean something different. But as professor and historian J.A. Rogers breaks down in his book, Nature Knows No Color Line, very specifically, that any duration of the word or deviation of the word more, regardless of how you spell it, is pertaining to the descendants of the Moors. And he shows that M-O-R-E was also used in French and how it's used in Spanish and Old Latin and English, which English is just a translation of many dialects. Then later it was spelled, this is the definitions words, they're saying that. Later it was spelled M-A-U-R-E, which is Moray. And that's also French. So again, we need to know this because if you're forced to deal with some of your French brethren, then you also got to try to talk the language a little bit, at least knowing that much. We might not have to talk fluently every sentence, but when you want to describe who you are, define who you are, you have to talk what they understand. Just like we talked about last week, if you're dealing with the natives of Jamaica or the ancient ones, then you have to speak the Maroon terminology when you're identifying who you are. Some of them might understand the word more, but you should use the term Maroon because they will understand that specifically. Because that's the name they go by. In Latin is morus. So you see it's still the same word. Morus is M-A-U-R-U-S. So in Latin, or Old Latin is morus. French is moray. In Greek is also morus, but it's spelled differently. M-A-U-R-O-S in Greek. Islam sister, you had your hand up? Mo? Oh, Islam. All right, everybody with me? Any questions so far? Islam, great. So just in case I don't get to it on this lesson, but when you're talking about moray and morus and moros, it also is the root word for Mauritania, which is also Moroccan. And that's embedded in your history. Just again, as a highlight note to just look in and go deeper at another time. So that's the word more, defined by the World Book or the World Dictionary. One of them. There are a series of them. So Moorish is the root word of the word more. More is the root word of the word Moorish. Now we go a little bit deeper. Now you take the word more, M-O-O-R. The root of that word. Now we get into the etymology of the word more itself. And I'm just giving their definition, then I have mine, elaboration onto it. But from their perspective, M-O-R, which is the root of more, means Moroccan. So M-O-R by itself, which is still more, means Moroccan. So more is Moroccan. Moroccan is more. It's the same word. Because only thing Morocco represent, or Moroccan, which is plural for Morocco, is still a suffix. When you deal with etymology, you'll realize that root words have a general meaning. And then suffixes is added to the root word. So Morocco is more, meaning that Morocco is just a suffix or a later translation of the word more. And this is all going to come to fruition for those who haven't got there yet on how we even got to this point. There's a word here pronounced Mauritius. I'm going to give you the spelling of it. Moracceous. You might pronounce it another way. Which the root word is mora. And what is meant by the word, it says belonging to the mulberry family. So those that are a little bit more advanced will understand what that means and where we're going with that. Yes, sir. Mulberry is related to the mulberry family. So quickly, what's a mulberry? Anybody? Yes. It's not. So why is that important? Color is important, yes. Yes.
True designation of where that tree is found.
Yes. Lineage, designation, yes. You say something else, Shikas? It's not. Yes, it also was a fig tree, and it was a compilation of different, there was a bush, it was a tree, fig tree is a plant, berries, which gives you a certain color.
Is that the same berry that was used the same person?
Yes. So this is why it's important to understand the color of the fez, because nowadays it's not made with the same integrity. I explained that in previous meetings. So now they're using, artificial ingredients to make the fez, and it's mass produced by machines in China, where it wasn't made. Original fezzes was handmade in Fez, Morocco. And this tree or plant or berry or whatever you want to, however they went through the process of it, extracted the natural juice from this and made the fezzes, which was native of Moroccans or Morocco. So they also says a fig, hop, hemp. They come from this. The mulberry tree. And I'm not too keen on it, but Sheikahs, doesn't the henna have some root in that too? They use a different one. No. Mainly you see Hindus using the henna a lot, but there's definitely culture involved in this. So the tree and the plants are actually cultural items native to our we're the descendants, but being our ancestors, and us too, because we are them. So it's native to our origin, our heritage. So we actually have to, when we talked about being a nation, you have resources as a nation that come from the land. And nations survived off of their resources, is how it's supposed to be. So we got to understand what our ancient ones did for trade and commerce, and what they used for trade and commerce. Then that's where you understand what did they supply the world with, and then what did the world start doing with these things. That's important for us to understand what we have to get back to, even if we're not trying to sell it, but at least we have to be able to tap into certain things that have ancestral roots in our DNA, even if we're using it for healing or whatever. These things are consecrated. All right, so that was a little off topic, but it's similar. So I want to give it a little twist now. So if you take the word moral conduct, or just having good morals, it's the same word. So the root of moral is more, M-O-R. So as an adjective, moral is good in character or conduct. Virtuous according to civilized standards of right and wrong, right and just. A moral act, capable of understanding right and wrong. So we understand what moral means. But now if we apply it to what it really means, and not from an ego perspective of saying all Moors have good moral code, but that's the standard. Moral is the standard of a Moor when you really break it down. That is the conduct or the character of a Moor. So the word moral is the character of a Moor when you break it down. Yes, Brother Joseph. Islam.
Perfect before praise, the Most High. His last prophet is being the time of Noble Drew Ali, the Moorish Science Temple as a whole, all members of the Tennessee Day Moors worldwide. Islam.
Islam.
Within that definition, it said it itself, according to civilized standards.
Islam.
What are those civilized standards?
Absolutely.
Established.
The standards that has been established and recognized. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And good to see you as always.
Beautiful.
Islam. Brother Monel.
Yeah, my praises already.
Islam.
Also, just to marry on, a camelback to what you was building with. We even use the Latin term amor, defining the word love, in itself. So, brought up the moral characteristics of upbringing. That word carries so much weight because it defines his love.
Absolutely. Islam. Love divine. Islam. Good morning. Got anything to add? Islam. Islam. So from the dictionary perspective, it's a good reference point. A very good reference point. And this is why I'm sharing it with you and used it for the lesson. Because if you won't even get that much information from a standard dictionary. So this is why it's important to be collectors of this type of information. Look for this type of information. As the record says, seek and ye shall find. You have to be, your mind have to be open to this. When I say to this, meaning you, as like I says, we're teachers. At the end of the day, we're here to be teachers. We're here to evolve and unfold, absolutely. But we're here to be teachers. We're summoned to be teachers. It's in it's in our divine constitution. It says, and we are teaching our people. So it started off with telling you that we are to proclaim. But after we proclaim, it says then we are to teach our people. So you only being clothed with this and pierced with this so that you can become a teacher. So when you become a teacher, you got to think like a teacher. And how would a teacher act? How would a teacher investigate and look for stuff to help their students and to teach, to make their job better? No different from any occupation that you have. You're always looking for tools, equipment, clothing, or whatever, thoughts to make your job better and easier. That's just the mindset of a teacher. The Quran also says, always be prepared to give an account for thy own action. And we are to teach by examples. So that's going back to the moral code anyway. So if you are more, you say you are more, you must be that which you know. But not just be of a good and moral character, but also teach it. And you teach it not just by word, but you teach it by example. So always remember that someone is watching you. You're never alone. That everything should ring in your mind at all times about this. This is Quran talk. That was my words, but that's still Quran interpretation. You're never alone. And don't think that the arm of Allah is weakened because your penalty is delayed. That's out the Quran for those who didn't know. So Islam, so what that interpretation means that just you did it wrong and nobody physically witnessed it, you think you got away with it. And the Quran brings us back to reality and science. Just because your punishment is delayed, don't think that you got over. So I just want to break that down. And within the moral definition, as they break it down, they show MOR in parentheses. So again, it's, you can research this for your own understanding. Prophet used the word moral in a sentence in the Moorish Guide literature. And he says, no member can attend the Adab chamber who has not lived a clean and moral life, or have not paid his dues and assessments. Can't consider himself a Moor So just putting these things together now, cross references, what does that really mean? Because Moors have debated on this issue. According to that, none of us lived a moral life. So technically, none of us are entitled to the name of Adam or the membership of Adam or an adept. That's how it's really pronounced. Sometimes we just comprehend by what we see and what we do, and just hearing people say add up, add up, add up. Sometimes you just ring in your mind that that's what you repeat off of what people say. But it's adept, not adept. It's the adept chamber, not the adept chamber. However, if that's how you want to pronounce it, we know what we're saying. But just if you want to correctly speak about this, or you're going to speak to somebody else, then you need to come correct, because you might say add up to them and they're looking at you like, what is that? That's not just a Moorish thing. An adept is an expert, highly skilled in whatever endeavor they're doing. So that's what the world know adept to mean. So when you say you're adept, you're saying I'm highly skilled. Not just that I do this for a living, or this is what I'm into, or I'm a member of something. What you're saying is you're highly skilled in that you profess. So now that's why he says that no member can attend the adept chamber or adept chamber who has not lived a clean and moral life. So we take out membership in it, or we might gain interest in it, but our mission should be at that point is to definitely know it perfectly. So that means that we should be masters in Moorish code if we want to refer to ourselves as an adept. So this is where we get the number 7 from. 7 represents perfection. Adept means perfect. So as man unfolds, his God unfolds. So eventually, man becomes perfected when he passed through all the ways of life. When he conquers a multitude of lessons and foes on this plane and the plane of soul. That's when we truly become an adept from the moral perspective, from that perspective, from the unseen perspective, like Brother Omari spoke about earlier. It's when we become our true self, one with Allah. We return back to the highest plane of life with our Father God, Allah. When we become Allah, when man and Allah become one, they say the resurrection is a fact. To be resurrected. Another term that is given in this World Dictionary is the word Morisco. Anybody want to give that a shot, Brother Mornell?
Is, the word Morisco is defined as those who were converted into Christianity, Moors who had to convert into Christianity.
And I'm glad you gave that meaning, because that's what some people say it is, but that's not necessarily what it means. Islam.
Morisco is like between like a sort of like the first form of denationalizing us. So it took us from like Moorish to Morisco. So if I'm correct, Morisco is like a Latin term for like a sub term of Moor, like a small Moor or a smaller meaning towards Moor.
Yes, and that's part of the process, absolutely. And more important, what you said is of Latin pronunciation and Latin root, Islam. And that's very important. Yes, fine, go.
Islam, as we were talking about the word Morisco, you think of how the angels were protecting the Holy City of Mecca to keep the non-believers away, and then those that were cast out because they followed the teaching of the non-believers.
Mm-hmm.
And it just when you think about that, because you were in the reigning in Andalusia, or what we call Spain now, and then it was cast out. I got you.
Islam. And I'm gonna show you or read to you what they say, and then we can build upon that. Morisco, which is root word is more, M-O-R. So at the end of the day, like we just spoke about, Morisco is still a Moor. Before you get into what type of Moor, what happened, what they do, or what they believe in, a Morisco is just a Moor. Now, what is meant by Morisco, that's something different. Now, that's what everybody just gave, their interpretation, because that's what people know that word to mean. But that's not what the word is. The word means more. So it's the root of more and cos, which is C-O-S, or kas, makes that word. That's where they got the two compound words from to make the word Morisco. So as an adjective, it means Moorish. Again, that's what the definition. This is from the book. That's not me saying that. It says Morisco means Moorish as an adjective. And again, you're not going to go into a standard dictionary and just get Moor and Moorish and telling you all types of Moors clear as day like this. Even though we know things have been watered down over the years, this is a lot of information just in what we went over already for someone who don't know. It says it was a composite architecture between Morisco and the Spanish. As a noun, a Moor, especially one of the Moors in Spain. So that's important because it says, as a noun, it says a Moor. As an adjective, it said Moorish. Back to what I was saying about the parts of speech. Moorish, the word Moorish is used to describe a Moor. But as a noun, it's not Moorish anymore. As a noun, is a Moor. And again, and there bear witness to that within this definition of Morisco. It says a Moor, then it says especially one of the Moors in Spain. As to say, even if he wasn't in Spain, he would still be considered Morisco. But it's not necessarily saying he has to be a native of Spain to be referred to as Morisco. That's just what the reputation was. That's what they refer, because of the language. Again, the region or territory of Spain was mainly Old Latin, language perspective. So a lot of the Moors were called upon or pronounced by saying Morisco. Now it has some origin in Christianity, like Brother Amari was saying, because a lot of them that were forced into the Christian era, the Christian religion, still was of Spanish inhabitants or residents, but they still was more. I don't want to dilute what the word means based off what some people later referred to Moors to represent. It's still a Moor. It's a Moor before the religion. It's a Moor before the way of life. It's still a Moor regardless of what they believed in. So, Islam, any questions? Any statements? Islam.
Just I give thanks first and foremost, Minister, for making that clarity.
Mm-hmm.
While he studied the history of the Moriscos,
Mm-hmm.
I just basically just said what it was meant by how when Queen Isabella had built the Moors out
Mm-hmm.
and some other force, at least she didn't denationalize them. She still called them by the national name,
Mm-hmm.
Moors or Moors.
Mm-hmm.
In that aspect. Also, that's just like with the Philippines. We know that in the Philippines they're called Mortos before King Philip.
Mm-hmm.
It's when King Philip came in, they called them Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that, these are the subjects of King Philip.
Islam.
So
That's absolutely correct according to history. Again, and it says that in the definition. It says Moriscos. Let me go back. These Moriscos who fled the idiotic and savage persecutions under Philip III. So it does make mention to that. Islam. Okay? Islam. Islam. Sheikh is Nika.
I just want to make a quick statement.
Yes.
Like I said, that every nation has suffered slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And we just explained how the Philippines
Mm-hmm.
slavery is.
Mm-hmm.
So they took on the name of their slave master.
Mm-hmm.
So every nation really has.
Every nation has suffered slavery. Absolutely. Islam. And it also goes back to the Moors being native of the seven seas. That we were in every nation. E pluribus unum. So we are the origin, the organic, the original man from that perspective in every territory across the globe. So Moor has original roots everywhere. We know that already, but understanding that once we know that, then we don't fall for the trick that the Moors went into Spain in 700. we wouldn't fall for the game that the Moors was brought here on slave ships in the 1700s. See, when we get into human trafficking and slave trafficking, that's when they start talking about where somebody went. And then we won't fall for so-called Native Americans or Indians being the natural inhabitants of so-called America. So we have Moors on both sides, on every side. Moors was navigators. We were originally the only navigators. We were originally the only inhabitants. So that's again when we get into the native, where that's going when we use the word native, which is natal, means to be born. So that's going to bring us over to nation again, fully explain nationality. Capitalizing off our last week's lesson. So why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Two different things going on there. Multiple nations going on there. Because Moroccans is plural in that statement. So that's not Morocco. He could have said we are descendants of Morocco and born in America. He could have made that statement, but he didn't. He said we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. So Moroccans is not a nation. It's not a specific nation state. It does not identify a nation state. Neither does the Moroccan Empire designate a nation state. And like Sheikah just says, neither do your Moorish flag designate one nation state. It's multiple nations. And born in America, which is used and acknowledged as North America, geographically and jurisdictional speaking. North America is one nation. But that's where the nationality comes in to designate the jurisdictional nation, or modern day speaking country, that we are generally citizens, i.e. members of, with the descent displayed before it, which shows our origin or our nativity. But our modern day domicile is America. Because that's what it's known as. Not saying that that's organic, and not even saying that's true in fact, because it's not. But it's a modern day nomen for the land specifically of North America. There's other parts of America that has a different jurisdictional or jural society. or what they would call countries. And that's not our modern day allegiance. They have different constitutions. So we just have to understand how country, which was, we talked about this, but colonization created the word country. I just want to give this definition too, being that Brother Mornell was just hitting us with the Philippines. They do have Moro in here. And it says a member of any of the Muslim Malay tribes in Mindanao and other southern Philippine islands. Two, the language of these people, meaning Moro is also a language. And as we understand denationalization, you'll understand why we so-called say we speak in English, because that's colonization and denationalization. According to the National International Family of Nations, the name of the language that your people speak is the same name as your nationality. That's why you understand how, like Sheik has just said, every nation has suffered slavery. Where you have people in Africa saying that they speak Arab. And even referring to themselves as Arab. That's why we Moors don't say that we are Arab or descendants of Arabs. Arab would denote Arabian, which has some significance if we were to break down line genealogy of the Arabian Peninsula. But that's not a Juro society. That's not the name of a Juro society, not unless you're saying that you're a member of Arabia, which northwest of Mexico is not Arabia. And those citizens are not Arabs. But Moro is a language, is the point I'm trying to make, which Moro is more. So the language is more in some areas, is what this is showing you. This is a world book. So they're telling you what the international family know. So if we just study domestic stuff, then we'll never understand how to link ourselves with the families of nations if we don't know the language. And the language don't mean just talking Spanish or French. The language is speaking intelligent. According to, like Brother Joseph said, the standard of what the family of nations acknowledge and know. So give you an example. The International Family of Nations don't recognize the word Negro, Black, and Colored, which Drew Ali told us that. In honor to him, because he's the first one that told us that. No one else wanted to, none of the other leaders, scholars, etc., wanted to stand up and make that knowledge born. So again, on a sidebar, he deserved a lot of honors for that, because he didn't just tell us that, but he explained to us the process, how to not be known as that, and how to link ourselves with the rest of the family now. Those are the keys that he was talking about. The keys is in our hands. So it's a lot of things that he did, physically, subliminally, metaphysically, esoterically. There's a lot of things that he did to save us. So he was on the up and up. And those lessons that he left is really what we're going over, and is what we should be going over, because this is what's going to help us get back on track. This is going back on track. This is what's going to help us communicate with the rest of the family. You don't have to know all these multiple languages. You don't, it's good to have a secondary language, to know certain languages, but don't think that as it's more important that you have to learn these languages fluently. That shouldn't be the mission. The mission is just to understand science and national learning, international learning, that is. International education, I should say, which is a term that we should understand or try to figure out what that would mean. What is international education? Because Drew said get a good European education and then I could use you. So it's sort of similar. Why? Europe nationalized the world. But they did it based off Moorish knowledge. Moorish education is what European education has become. So getting a good European education is getting a good Moorish education. So again, we don't want to, just stray away from stuff, not knowing that the keys might lie within that. If we want to reverse this, then you got to reverse what put us in this situation. Well, if somebody's ruling and took over, what knowledge are they using? What platform? What process? You got to learn the process. Everything is based off process. Nothing get done without process. And that's our downfall. A lot of us make reference to things, but don't really understand the process behind it. So too, it says the language of these people. And it starts off with saying a member of any of the Muslim Malay tribes or Malay tribes. Muslim is really not a tribe if you understand the coding behind this. But if you go into chapter 45, Drew Ali already dropped on this. In the divine origin of what? The Asiatic nations. And at the end of it, he says, all of these are Muslims. Which means, on a real note, on a high note, I should say, everybody is Moors. When you really understand it. But because of jurisdictional, jural society speaking, government perspective is broken down into nationalities, names, or nationalities, which are named after the people of what they refer to themselves as in those societies. And people have just changed the names that they go by as time went on. Just like us. We later became known as Negro, Black, and Colored. But that's not who we are. That's not our true name. We are Moors. Because we're descendants of Moroccans and born in America. But guess what? So is everybody else that's in America. So technically, every American citizen is a Moor. Why? Because they are descendants of Moroccans, which is truth, and born in America. Even if they wasn't born in America, if they take their domicile in America, they still, by default, should be Moorish, referred to as Moorish. No different if you're in Egypt and they're Just say pale-skinned people in Egypt. They're not white. They're not called white. They're called Egyptians. And they're not called white Egyptians. And they're not called pale Egyptians. They're just called Egyptians. If they're pale and they're in Nigeria, then they're Nigerian. So if they're paled in America, then as default now they refer to themselves as American, modern day, but American is Moroccan. The word American denotes Moroccan. American is two compound words again. And the two words is Amera, Ameri, or Amari. Kin is just a suffix. And if you go deeper into the etymology of it is mer, which is M-E-R, which is M-A-R, which is M-O-R. It's the same word. So American is more. Amera is a prefix, Amari is a prefix, and ken is a suffix. The root of American or America is more. So it's this when you say American, you're just describing a more as an adjective. American is a more, is a kind of more. That's all it means. Yeah, your hand up.
Yes, also in Egypt, Maur or more, M-A-U-R, were actually high priest. The high priest.
Mm-hmm.
They went to in a temple called U.S.A. In order for you to take on your role as being a high priest,
Mm-hmm.
you must also take on the term more. And it's M-A-U-R, if I'm not mistaken. That may be Greek, but that may be Greek now, but back then it was M-A-U apostrophe
All right.
A-R, something like that. But, I just wanted to add on to that too, as far as the high priest. So that goes to show character in itself, because you have to have moral upbringing for you to even be a high priest
Mm-hmm.
as well too. So just linking back to the nations, like you said.
Islam. Appreciate that. It's fine, go.
Very cheap. Kind of paraphrasing, but I want you to help me with it. That, the prophet said that we are the divine. Is that what it is? Divine covenant of creed. National.
Divine title of the government? No, so without a free national name, without a flag of your forefathers, there's not a divine title of the government in which you live. That's the quote you're saying? Islam. Islam's the quote. Mm-hmm. 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 Memoria. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Islam. Islam. Islam, and that's relevant as well. And I'm going to actually go there next. Very relevant. Lemuria is another name of the land, which in Spanish, L-A is pronounced La. L'amor. And L-A is sometimes used as the. And E-L sometimes as a prefix is used as the. But La is more from a Latin pronunciation in Spanish. So Lemuria, based on what the sister just said, is the more. So the land being referred to as Lemuria is just another pronunciation of saying the land of the Moor, which goes into part of my next lesson. Islam, Sheikh, you had your hand up? Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Female and masculine principle between La and El. Thank you. Yes. The motherland. So female is the land is pronounced feminine. Yes. Islam. What'd you say, Brother Joseph? That's your aunt's name? What's her name? Lamore. Islam. We had one of the original members of Temple Number 10. Her name was Lemuria. Islam. So shout out to her. She moved out to Louisiana. Islam. So they have Moroccan in here. It says having to do with Morocco or its people, a native or inhabitant of Morocco. So they don't go much into that. All right, so this is what I want to go into now. This is going to be pretty quick because of time. So Moor, M-O-O-R, is also in Nautilus, seafaring, or maritime jurisdiction and language also used. And is not being used as applied to people when it's used in the whole Nautilus game. But we need to understand this because it's Masonic. So they give a definition of Moor, and they says to put in or keep a ship, boat, etc., in place by means or ropes or chains fastened to the shore or to anchors. To tie, to strengthen, or to secure, or what they, in plural, they call it mooring. So when you moor a ship or mooring a ship, then what are you doing is you're tying it down. You're making sure that it's not free to move. All right. So that term that moor is used in that whole scenery. So some Moors use this when we make reference to like the chapter 5 demonstration, when we talk about when we use the compass and the square, and we use the circle to circumscribe our passions and things of that nature, where from a ship, because your body is a ship. You have what you call a celestial ship, and your body is a physical ship. Your vessel, absolutely. All right. And again, when we dealing with tribunals and court systems, and even not even in court, but when you're dealing with municipalities and state governments, you're also dealing with this same maritime jurisdiction. And they refer to municipalities as townships. And it's all right. It's just that we got to understand this stuff. Because now they have a ship, the state represents a ship. And when you go back to the ancient days of whenever our forefathers navigated and sailed out to sea, the ship became a government, its own government. So whenever that ship was anchored to land, then the law of the land was the law of the people. But when they set out to sail, then the ship itself becomes its own government separate from the land. And then the head of the ship was referred to in Latin language, the governor, which is nowadays pronounced as governor. So every state has what you call a governor, but that comes from the word governor in Latin, which was the head of the ship. The governor is now the head of the state, but the state is still the ship drawn back to ancient times. So when you're saying that you live in a state, what you're telling them that you're boarding this man's or this woman's ship. So you're speaking jurisdiction when you talk this language, not knowing what you're saying. You're subject to that state's jurisdiction. You're subject to that township. That's what you're saying when you just say things or acquiesce to things or sign things in writing, not knowing what you're saying as far as residence. And I live here and this is my address to my house. Well, you just said that you're subject to that ship. Fly and go, you have your hand up.
It's fine.
Yes, sir.
I love the way you were just breaking that down, because one of the definitions of more is a ship tied to an anchor.
Yes.
And like you said, like the state or the people being governed by the ship itself, when you're sailing out, it's a government of the people that's on there. And then once they go to where they're going, same thing like with the ship with the anchor coming down, it says the name of the people and touching the land. So that would be us as Moors. And then, like you said, in the court, when you enter into their jurisdiction or in that courtroom, becomes the ship as well. Maritime law.
Yes.
And that's why they have
law of the sea.
Law of the sea
versus law of the land. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land only. Meaning once you board a ship, you no longer are under the Constitution that you just left from. That's what they're saying to you when you go to court and he tell you he's not going by the Constitution. It's because he's telling you you left the land. And you're now not under the jurisdiction of the land anymore. You're under maritime jurisdiction, which law is a law of the sea, admiralty. You someone else's ship now. That's where the 14th Amendment comes in, because now they're saying that you're no longer part of the people. You're not part and parcel anymore. Now you become subject to the jurisdiction of whoever this governor is. Whoever's claiming jurisdiction of this ship is who you subject to. You're not subject to the land anymore. So you got to be, this is where more comes in at when you're dealing with ship and ship vessels and what they call ship signals. You got to know this because this is how you navigate. Whenever we move, that's a form of navigation. No matter if you walk into the corner store, if you in a conveyance, in your automobile, on a public interstate, it's still a form of navigation. And Moors organically are navigators. So we gotta, not saying that we can't deal with law of the sea, because we can. We just gotta know what jurisdiction we under when we out to sea. This is where this flag is very important, because no ship can fly high sea without being identified by a flag. The flag represents nationality. So ships have nationalities. Nationality is more used on sea or in sea than it is used on land in America. Because America is saying that you boarded our ship now. You got to surrender that jurisdiction you came from. If you want to be a citizen here, is what they're saying. It's no different from a foreigner, so-called foreigner, who wants to take out citizenship here. They say he has to relinquish his allegiance to his previous nation. That's why. Because you can also, that's why they can't give you a title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10. It's a foreign private jurisdiction that they're claiming, and that they only have jurisdiction over. So it's either you participate or you don't. That's take it or leave it is the attitude of the U.S. They can't deal with sovereignty because it's outside their jurisdiction, nor is it beneficial to them. They deal with sovereigns when they deal with international relations. They got no choice. That's where trade agreements come in at. But when they deal with domestic, with their own people, you got to be subject to them in order for them to put you in their system legally. So,
Islam. This was put in reference as well. The symbolism of the yellow fringes on a flag.
yes.
Whether you're in the court or some of the officers wear on their sleeve, it's the U.S. flag, but outlined in gold fringes, which represents maritime law. So, they're not hiding it. You can see right plain as day what their agenda is about. But it's just the fact that a lot of us, we look at the uniform and we can't decipher what these symbols and colors mean. Just like, within the movement. When you see certain badges and symbols, you should already be able to identify with them. And it's the same thing with them.
Absolutely. Islam. Flying Go, and then Sister Nicole. All right, that was just a gesture. Islam. Sister Nicole.
Yes, just relative to jurisdiction, nationality,
Mm-hmm.
establishing more
Mm-hmm.
within the court tribunal system,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that they're functioning from equity and commerce,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to do justice within that system, even though you know you're entering to foreign territory, having the superior, if you will, standing based upon the fact that understanding the blood sanctionless rights,
Mm-hmm.
being in that jurisdiction, being that they took an oath of office to the Constitution, isn't that binding them and still allowing you to be in that foreign water?
It's providing you remedy.
But still being able to get justice based upon that
It's
they agreed to be here and they agreed to their oath.
Yes, that's what this flag or banner represents. That agreement. This is an agreement
Right, that's the contract.
for, like you said, commerce. But it's a process behind it. And Drew Ali is a master. I'll let you finish first. It's not.
Well, no, just expounding on that, saying that even though we know who we are based upon our nationality and our birthright is foundational to the land which we're on, and we know that they are foreigners on our land operating in commerce. It has played itself not in the Moor's favor a lot of times with going into those foreign waters to get remedy. We're up under occupation. So we still need remedy in our everyday life. So we have to be subject to, to their admiralty, commerce, court, courts of equity, bankruptcy, but equity. We still want that. So I would just ask you, to maybe expound on, not being subject to them so much, but having them to give us proper justice and guaranteeing
Yes.
the contract.
So I was right in the statement. I said more, you're talking more of the remedy. What's the remedy? Knowing the situation, knowing the condition. And from my experience, the remedy is within the procedure, the process. So like they know who we are. So it's not a matter of you letting them know who you are. They already know who you are. They already know the history. They know it better than a lot of us. So it's not about that. It's more about the process of how you board that ship. And this is what it all comes down to. Not saying that if you board it perfectly and correctly, that you're just going to have the supreme remedy that you're looking for. What I'm saying is you'll have a better chance for remedy or justice, like you would say, if you board the ship correctly. If you do everything that you're supposed to do in informing them and following the process of this flag here, and I'm not going to play the game of this is a flag, this is a banner, and what that represents. That's nonsense to me, right? Drew Ali, mimic Drew Ali and how he demonstrated this, and show respect for it, because a lot of people don't. That's one of the mistakes we make. We don't show the ties of being part and parcel in a lot of our process. So regardless of who we are, we walk into a ship or board a ship with disrespect from the door. Regardless, yeah, we know I can flip sides at will. Yes, we were colonized. They came and they forced entry. I understand that. And for that purpose, people shouldn't deserve respect. I'm with you on that. But that's not Drew's methods of remedy. Now we're talking two different things. How I feel about the situation, that's emotions. And law don't deal with emotion. So when we deal with law, we got to deal with fact and process, true fact and process. Again, if we are more, we're supposed to have moral code. We just established that, right? So we should enter in with morality. Drew Ali said, speak in an intelligent tone, and we get a favorable reply. So that's remedy. So it's all about trying to speak the most intelligent that we can. But back to the remedy. So remember I said when you board the ship or any ship or you go out to sail, first thing you see any ship got is a flag identifying the jurisdiction of that vessel, which is referred to as nationality. Ships have nationalities. Vessels have nationalities. You are a vessel. So whenever you navigate, whether it's on land or sea, you're supposed to be identified by nationality. So not just your name, not just the fez is the headdress. But whenever you demonstrate these ships like that, you're supposed to have a pin, a lapel pin is called, which is a flag of your forefathers, your national pin. That's the red flag with the 5-pointed green star in the center. That's made into a pin. This should be worn on your clothing. That's the first identification of the nationality of your vessel when you walk into a physical tribunal or a courtroom or whenever you handle any business. For example, if you go to traditional temples, and I use that word loosely, but when you go to most Moorish science temples, most elders dress in a suit and you'll see a lapel pin of a flag because that's Moorish code. That's just not to be worn in the temple. But whenever you conduct business, that should be worn. No different from, I'm going to use the any governmental official. Go on CNN, you look at it. Any government official always dress proper when they come to a meeting, a congressional meeting, any type of state meeting. Most of them, suits is the traditional code of business. But not only is a suit by men worn, but you always see a pin of the nation, or what they refer to as the national flag. That's standard when you're talking governmental character. No matter if Secretary of State, President, Vice President, no matter who they are, the Senate, whoever they are, even when they cross seas and go to another meeting, that has to be worn. So it's standard, domestic and international. Look at the background. When you see any prime minister, anybody speaking from a national statement, the flags are always demonstrated in the background. That's protocol. That's standard. Because it's not just a good gesture or display for a backdrop. That's political standards. And it denotes nationality and jurisdiction. So that's the first code. That we have to dress properly. How you present yourself is everything when you're dealing with remedy. And those that deal with what they call masonry or fraternal organizations, that's also what they mimic. Because most agents and officials are fraternally inspired. So their fraternal organizations, so it's like a civic organization. It trains you for government, supposed to, if you're in the right ones. No different from why Drew Ali established the Moorish Science Temple of America to train us for government. It's the same thing, the process is just a little bit different. We both arrive at the same point, but just different process. So the American flag, as he called it, and I'm only keeping it according to the literature, and the Moorish American flag. Those two flags have to be accompanied together to denote jurisdiction for more in America. That's a very important key and tool because a lot of Moors don't follow that. They look at that as temple stuff, and because of that, they disassociate with that because they're thinking temple and they're thinking corporate affiliation. Your nationality is Moorish American. Therefore, without saying that, that shows that. Without saying it. That speaks for you when you don't know what you're talking about. That's another reason why it's important to not disassociate from things that you Ali have set up. Because we don't know. We coming into something not knowing. And he laid this for us. So there's a lot that we don't know. So who are we to just change what he did thinking we got superior knowledge? This is what's established. That's established on the high seas already. That display don't show American. That don't show so-called white man or European American. That shows ancient Moroccan born in America. That shows the occupational transition of what occurred. That's history within itself. Without going into a bunch of verbiage. Or I proclaim my nationality, I did this, I went into... You ain't got to mention none of that. They already know. Most of us walk away from the truth by keep talking. We walk right out the jurisdiction because we want to try to explain something that we don't quite understand. And we walk into a trap or board the ship. So, yes, we're walking into the jurisdiction. I agree with that terminology, but we're walking in with honor in the beginning. Most of us walk out the jurisdiction that we are organic jurisdiction and walk and board this man's ship by talking our way out of it. And I can explain that a little bit later. You had a question.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying then that as diplomatics or officials or whatnot wear the pen, the nationality, are you saying that we should wear a pen with this flag, a pen with that flag on our lapel? We should wear both of them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, again, most elder Moors do. most of them don't necessarily understand political significance, but they do it more as the tradition, and that's how they was groomed in the temple, which that's proper. That's what the temple is there for, to prepare you. Is for us to go back and understand the symbolism behind what we're working with. These are just symbols. It says man comprehend the inner life by what he see and what he do. So symbolism is put there to remind you of your origin. And also to help clarify things that you might not understand until you get to that point. Islam? You good with that?
Good with that.
Islam. Yes, sir.
Islam.
And also, before I forget, Brother Joseph, just hold that thought.
Islam.
You can still rise, just hold that thought. Don't forget, you're allowed to let your documents precede you. So I'm just dealing with tribunal perspective now. That's important too when you're sending documents onto a ship. If the header is not right with that, then you can also offset the jurisdiction. So documents is protocols before you board any ship. And how the documents is written makes a difference, and the symbolism you have on the documents also make a difference. So that's important to declaring your nationality or Islam. Islam. Yes, sir.
Islam. It's
Make sure you bring me back to the flags, please, just in case I forget. That's something else I want to say.
and what I wanted to say, kind of, camel feeds into that, or camel backs off of that.
Mm-hmm.
A few moments ago, you spoke of mooring.
Mooring, yes.
Defined it as the act of a ship tethering itself to the land,
Mm-hmm.
connecting itself to the constitution of the nationality, or the what comes with connecting yourself to that land and that nation's laws and bylaws.
Yes, sir.
No longer maritime law, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
In that day, it was synonymous that there was a time, it was synonymous, the act of mooring, certain things, the word moral, things that were established with the standard of the Moors.
Yes.
They were synonymous with all of the pinnacles of society,
Mm-hmm.
all of the virtues of society. Those things were synonymous
Mm-hmm.
with the acts of the Moors, the people. Nowadays, it seems like since we've been denationalized and we have been ripped from the land,
Mm-hmm.
the act of nationalization or renationalization has now become the act of moral,
Mm-hmm.
tethering ourselves back to the land.
Correct.
So
Act
on
four.
and so forth, and things of that nature. And then, like you just spoke of, you said, our vessels, our human vessels, as we conduct ourselves as such, when we move through this this jurisdiction, the act of mooring is a necessity as well, to continue to tether yourself to the land by doing what? Things like you just said, identifying yourself by nationality without even saying anything, by something as simple as putting a flag correctly placed upon your lapel. It speaks to those who have ears to hear. And it's just amazing and staggering the parallels from that time from which we came and gained our standards to now, how they relate. But it's still more.
Absolutely.
It's wrong.
Absolutely. And to add on to that, mooring is just like moor is something they're trying to get away from. But nowadays they use the word docking to replace mooring. So anytime something is at a dock, it's being moored. And to go further into that, mooring is also another form of nationalizing. So Drew Ali moored us, and the act of nationalization was mooring, like you said. tying us to the nation and to the family of nations.
Our land.
Absolutely. And what I'm going to talk about here, yes, it's not. This might be a little touchy, but the Emperor of Morocco or the Moroccans, the ancient Moroccans, the Moroccan Empire, actually moored the European nations. When you get technical into political science, there's proof of that. I can back up what I'm saying. We moored the European nation. We nationalized the European nation. How so? How so is because the United States of America was nationalized directly by the Moroccan Empire. In fact, the United States of America, the European nations, or Britain was not even allowed to dock on our shores without permission of the Sultan. So to dock is to moor. It's the same word. We were the first and the only nation that acknowledged and gave permission to them to dock here, to do trade and commerce with the surrounding regions. That's what this flag really represents. So people keep looking at this as their flag, but we authorized this. It's not the original symbolism itself. And this is one of the reasons why we got this flag here. This predates this one. But just giving you the umbrella understanding of Moors have to take ownership of this, and this is what Drew Ali did. And Moors keep trying to disassociate with this. It was an agreement that was made that they broke the agreement. They're just wrong and got karma for that, but that has nothing to do with us. We're still in honor. It's a fair game and neutralized because we descended from our nation's principles. We denationalized mentally, although that they had great influence over that. But because we wasn't living moral code, then they felt like they didn't have an obligation either. That's what neutralized represents in that perspective. Where they take an oath to uphold the Constitution based off what you said earlier. But the reason why they don't just give you that constitutional remedy because they're looking at it still as we're outside the Constitution ourselves. So they're saying, well, if you're not a part, if you don't hold no obligation to it, then I don't have to hold no obligation to it. And this is what Drew Ali was teaching until we answer to constitutional standards of law by name and principles. There is no fair game. There's no equal footing. There is no reparation. There is no acknowledgement from that perspective as long as we're outside the fold of it. And they know that. And they take advantage of the fact that we're not there yet. Some individuals might be, but meaning collectively, they know we're not there, so they can't make a standard as Moors have a pass or a free dismissal to something because they're saying that they are more, or they come and talk about some constitution. And if that was the case, people would just be flooding the courts and flooding the system, talking about they're more, and the morality won't be there because Moors wouldn't feel like they have an obligation to the law. Look how it is now. The Moors saying, "Oh, I do my thing. I'm part of this. I do that, and I'm good over here, or I'm not part of nobody. I know the law, and I can do this on my own, so I don't need this. I don't need that." Look at the situation now, with the Europeans still in control. That's why Drew Ali even said it himself, that I'm going to keep the European there long enough to teach you government. So when the Moors collectively get into that governmental structure, that mindset, until then, we're still going to be under occupational rule. And that's divinely that way. So we can't just change the hand of the divine now because we know what it's supposed to be like. This is something that we have to, within the unification of our people, we have to earn that right to rule again. And we're not there yet collectively. Therefore, we're still going to have to play these games, play the chess games. And I personally, is a case-by-case basis on how they deal with this. So they're not going to give us collective acknowledgement. They're going to give us case-by-case acknowledgement. That means that you have to, they look at how you move, how you walk, how you board the ship, how you speak. That's why Drew says, speak in an intelligent tone, you get a favorable reply. Because what he's saying is, that's a case-by-case situation. They're glad to see me bring you out of darkness into the light. Light means knowledge. Knowledge means to know. Science means knowledge and to know. So he created or repositioned the Moorish Science Temple of America based off the circumstances, based off the mindset, based off the fall. So even the name Moorish Science Temple of America is symbolic and is in reference to what I was just making reference to up here, the connection. The name of the temple shows the connection itself. Forget what the people in it are doing and how they think. Erase the people you know as members of the Moorish Science Temple. The name itself and the structure of it speaks for itself. That other men know this by these, meaning that those politicians and insurgents you talking to know exactly what you're a part of, but they know that we're not a part of it. And listen to what I'm saying. They respect the temple and the structure. They just don't respect the people in it. So changing the name of it is not the solution. It's already perfected from that perspective. Our job is to come in tune with it, is what we're missing. And a lot of brainiacs keep thinking that they can change the formula because it's outdated, and that's not the case. So it's very important to just, study Drew Ali's work, the process. Because within the process is the process. And he even said it. If you doubt my redemption process is right for my people, then go to those that know law. Go to City Hall and among the officials in your government. He told you the scenario right then and there. It's a process. This represents a process. That's it. And we're slowly, but we're surely learning the process little by little. The process is what's going to free us as an individual and as a nation. It's the process. This is a redemption process. A lot of us want to follow Johnny Liberty and other people's process. And they say it's a process. There's a bunch of processes out there, which is cool. And they also refer to it as the administrative procedures. That's a process. And it's all cool to look into that because some Moors are not teaching it. They don't know the process. It's a part of the process. It's just not the process in its whole. It's a similar process to certain things. That's more on the trade and commerce side. But they can't teach you this side. And it's not designed for them to do that. It was designed for Drew to do that. And that's what he did. He was ordained by Allah to teach us the process. So again, he got this. They got what you call the display of the flags. Now, the way you display it, that's questionable, but out of respect and gesture in the United States of America on these shores, you're supposed to display the American flag first. Because that's the modern day allegiance and jurisdiction tied to the constitutional government. Then your descent flag goes after that as your secondary, because you're not on that particular land. However, it's a little different for us because we are on the land, and that is the flag of the land, which we refer to as, that's the real Old Glory. So that's why we get away with it sometimes on how we display it. There's no disrespect though, but some Moors use it as disrespect, but it's not intended to be that way. When we're in the jurisdiction of our own ships exclusively, like in the temple, then we can display it according to Article 4, according to the Constitution. We can display it with the Moorish flag first, because it's a private setting. But when you're in the public's view, to show respect of your nation is supposed to be first. Well, and it could be considered, I won't even get into that, but it's not as unpatriotic to do it any other way. Just to throw that out there. Islam? Other flags known that other Moors use, all right? Some Moors, like back in Great Seal, we used to have all three flags. We used to put the continental flag, which is called, in the middle. Drew Ali never did that. That was just a Great Seal demonstration. But we got to understand that Drew Ali displayed it this way, and that's where the law and recognition comes from. Anything you do outside of that, you got to explain that. But that's not the standard. The standard means what's recognized. Just to clear that up. So when we say something is standard, that means that's what's firm, that's what's fixed in law. That's what people know that to be. Whenever you do something that's not standard, now you're doing this on your own accord, you have to explain that now. And then you also risk the fact that somebody might not recognize it. So Drew Ali said, his words, money doesn't make a man. It is free national standards and power to make a man and a nation. So the nation has to follow standards in order to be recognized. For the nation to be recognized, the nation has to have standards. For the individual to be recognized, he has to be part and parcel with the nation. So the flag represents not the individual, it represents the nation itself. The display of the two flags represents part and parcel of the nation by agreements that was made between Drew Ali and the government. So it created a standard for everyone else to be recognized if they were in alignment with what he set up. That's where Act 4 comes into. That's what Brother Joseph was just explaining about tying ourselves to the land, i.e., coming back into the constitutional fold of government. It's the same statement. Act 4 is where you would, the first entry to being part and parcel. So we were denationalized and had to be renationalized back into something that we were already a part of. Which another term for that would be called repatriation. A lot of the Rastas use that term. But it's the same process. Repatriate. And actually look it up because it's vital to this. Brother Mark, can you assist me with this? It might not be in the 4th edition. If it's not, it's in the 7th. I know it's in one of them. Repatriate. So the display of the flags, the continental flag, is not an organic flag of our forefathers. But sometimes Moors use the descent flag and the continental flag together and leave the American flag out of the picture. That's an incorrect display. It could be used just for domestic internal type of operation, but it should never be used to board a ship. The continental flag represents a transition of an administration of government. Yes, it does predate this flag, but it still represents the Confederate nation. And it specifically is referred to as the Bunker Hill flag. And the reason why is because it represents the defeat in the war that was fought on the land referred to as Bunker Hill. So the flag is only making representation to a war, a fight, a battle. It wasn't even a war because it was a battle. There's a difference between war and battle. Everybody familiar with that? All right. So it was the Battle of Bunker Hill. Yes, sir. You got it?
Repatriation. Repatriation takes place when a person who has been expatriated regains his or her nationality.
So even though Drew Ali didn't use the words to my knowledge, but that's what's taking place here. We're repatriating. Re means again, right? Just like religion means again, or to realign. So it's the same thing we're doing, binding back to something that you was once a part of. So this whole concept of nationalization is religious in the context of what religion means. We're binding back to this. That's a form of religion. Outside of what you've been taught, religion means. That's why you don't want to take the word away from your demonstration, because it's there to protect you and explain what's going on here. You have the term patriotism and patriotic and patriot. Those are political terms being used. Look at the football team, New England Patriots. What do you think that is? Look at their logos, their uniform. You're going back to war and battle and colonialism. Somebody was fighting who or somebody to do something. There was a mission behind that. So when you make reference to certain things, you're making reference to the origin of where that came from. And why is it called the New England Patriots? Where's New England at? Islam, what'd you say?
The New England colonies were the first territories.
Islam. Absolutely. So that they keep their history animated in different things symbolically. Just like I was watching a film last night, I forgot what the title was. It was just a trailer for it, but it was talking about founding of this country, and it was giving George Washington all this honor, and it was saying that George Washington was the father of this country, and it was saying that George Washington was the standard for the country. And I'm listening to that like, that's sad.
Yes.
Not because of that's what they believe. There's two different things going on there. George Washington is the founding of the new administration of this country. He represents the last stronghold of the Moors. We understand all of that. His army defeated the Moors. So he's highlighted because he was able to accomplish the defeat of the Moors, or help in the defeat of the Moors. That's what's so important behind him being the father figure, because they're saying that if they never defeated the Moors, or if he never defeated the Moors with his army, then they will still be under occupation. So much honor goes to him for that alone, not just for him. He's not the first president. That's not where the honor comes in at. And their history is so convoluted that it's just symbolically, it just scars us as a people to not know that information. He is not our father. And he does not represent the morality of the land. He couldn't be. He was a slaveholder as well. So that's against what Abraham Lincoln was talking about. Slavery was anti-American, and he proved it. So how can a slave holder or a slave master be the standard of the nation itself, when that individual was clearly in opposition of the standards of what America was supposed to represent? So this is how we have to challenge that. Not that, no disrespect to him as an individual, but the history is wrong in teaching somebody. He's not the standard. To say he's the standard, then you're saying that colonialism is the standard of the nation. Colonization is the standard of the nation, is what you're saying. Slavery and slaveholding is the standard of America, is what you're saying by making that statement. So you can't talk democracy or republic with saying that this individual is set the standard of America. He did set a trend and a standard up until 1865. And Lincoln broke that standard and proved that that wasn't the standard. That's what Drew was telling us in Act 6. Without going into that deeply, Drew put it in Act 6 and just explained it in brief. But again, we got to know how to decode and break down what Drew gave us. So when the opportunity presents itself, then you go back to what he said and use it. So that was there for us, yes, but it's also there for them. So when you're dealing with correspondence again, boarding these ships, you got to. That's why that divine constitution got to be entered onto that ship, because it explains all that is your constitution. That's your constitution before it's the United States of America Constitution, and that explains your navigation and your status while you were on that ship or while you're dealing with this agreement. That explains it. That's the only constitution that's going to explain it. If you're just like these flags are displayed here, your constitutions, the divine constitution and bylaws, and the United States of America Constitution and the treaty should be stapled together as one document. Just like this becomes one display. Just like your nationality is more hyphen American, means that they're joined, makes it one. Starts off as two, but it becomes one. It shows a joiner. If your divine constitution is not accompanied with the United States of America's constitution, you have no claim. There is no claim. There's no claim that deserves acknowledgement. Let me say that. Not saying you can't win a situation. You can win. You can win the battle, but you won't win the war. So you got to understand that back to that whole battle versus war, there's going to be many battles that we attend to on this land. We all battle on our own personal case-by-case basis, but together we got to win the war. And we're not going to win that war. We already got defeated. We lost many wars, which led us to be known as Negro, Black, and Colored. And I just want to make sure everybody understand that statement. Is there anyone, and be honest, is there anyone that don't understand that Negro, black, and colored, those brand names are the result of war. Good. We all passed that. Those are POWs, prisoners of war. And to nationalize, we explained what nationalize meant last week, to bring under government control or rule or protection. But by nationalizing, if we use that term, we're being brought under governmental protection. Jurisdiction speaking. This is what proclaiming your nationality does for you. Brings you under the protection of a nation, i.e., Sundry Free Moors Act of 1790, being tried as subjects of the Emperor Morocco, or the Sultan, which is the same in those days. Because that's where your protection comes from your descent. So the Constitution itself here is not your protection by itself. The Constitution, the divine Constitution and bylaws, and the United States of America's Constitution, which is the free national Constitution, become one Constitution. Everybody understands that? It's one Constitution. Do not separate them in speech. And don't allow someone else to separate them when you make reference to them, especially in a court of law. They're one document. Now the process is to prove that, because they're going to disagree with you. That's where you have to know Act 6, not Act 6, pardon me, Article 6 of the United States Constitution. And that will explain that, but you have to study it to know that, and you have to piece them together by the 6th article. So Article 6 and Act 6 run hand in hand, but you've got to be able to explain that. Islam? Islam. I didn't realize it was so late. Islam. Did you have a question, sister?
I just had a couple of comments.
Yes.
Going back to the flag's question, and that is, the question was out there is similar to a couple of weeks ago. I said that there's 3 identification cards that are there, and I was asking which one had more respectability, recognized governmentally, the North American Consulate ID, the Bay identification, and the Moorish Science Temple of America identification. And so it was the latter, which is Moorish American, Moorish Science Temple of America identification card. So the question was also brought up recently of if you didn't have those cards, one had stated, as long as you're up under the flag. So can you expound on that, meaning the Moorish American flag? So if you can expound on that, and also just to build on something that you stated, the American United States government corporation, if you will, is expressed in the letter from George Washington to the Sultan of Morocco.
Yes.
In the city of New York, 1786 timeline. The latter paragraph, it states that with respect to and attachment to meaning the Moorish dominion. So basically, he's expressing the acknowledgement, thank you for your commerce, thank you for your dominion for commerce, but also in the end, he indicates that the United States is an attachment to the Moroccan Empire. So
yes,
it is expressed in that one letter in and of itself.
Yes, he starts off with His Majesty.
His Majesty,
making reference to the Emperor of Morocco.
So
His Majesty is, so he's saying that he's a citizen as well. Absolutely. And the agreement was them to pay a tariff to the Emperor of Morocco, and which they did for a certain amount of time. Then they stopped. Which the reason why they stopped is because they decided to go to war with us because they didn't want to pay taxes anymore. So they contradicted the agreement that George Washington made with the Emperor of Morocco when we allowed them to dock here and moor here, and when we nationalized them.
That's one plan. I had a couple questions real quick. So that was one of the ones there. Also, as you were speaking about the connection between the Star Spangled Banner
Mhm.
and the flag, there is a phrase, song, whatever, acknowledging the two, which is their allegiance. You know, they have you saying it as, I don't know if they may still do it in the school, but way back they used to have us give an allegiance to the flag.
Mhm.
And in that, you know, I pledge allegiance to the flag
Mm-hmm.
of the United States of
Mhm.
America,
Mm-hmm.
to the republic for
Mhm.
which it stands.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one nation and indivisible. So I'm going into just certain words that catch my attention. So
Mhm.
as you were speaking, I was remembering, you know,
The
those
song.
references that it's to one is of the United States of America, and I'm assuming that was the de jure governmental body in the United States of America from the 1774 timeline that maybe they're referencing in that United States of America. But
Mhm.
also to the Republic, which was the original political body versus democracy. We were in the Republic as the de jure form of government. So I just wanted to put that out there and you're speaking, that's kind of what came to mind. But, so if you would expound on being up under the flag, if you're not inside the temple, but you're still exercising your proclamation and your recognition of the free national name, as we know, some people are doing the documentations from the other two, Moorish American Council, as well as Arden Bay, which is the publication company providing those documents. So in saying that, would you say that the Moors that are not attending the temple, if they're up under the flag, if they're displaying the signals, are they considered protected under the
Well,
dress
it's,
code, body politic?
I'm gonna try to explain it in brief, and I'm talking process and not emotion. It doesn't matter if someone's in the temple or not. If they're not following the process itself, then they're not really acknowledged. However, it is better to be in the temple and follow the process, because the process was started in the temple. And again, it's called the Divine Constitution and Bylaws of the Moorish Science Temple of America, not of the American nation or the Moorish American nation. So that's a key for advanced and adepts. The Constitution is of the Moorish Science Temple of America, just like the Free National Constitution of the United States of America. The word "of" is your key joiner or preposition. Who's it of? It's of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Who's it of? It's of the citizens of the United States. So of explaining who is it pertaining to. Because the Moorish Science Temple is the government, the Moorish Science Temple is the government structure. It's the organization of the nation. It's the nation's organization. Now, Moorish American was declared officially in 1928 as a nation, as a political jural society. That's a nation. So to be a member of any nation, there is a process you have to go through to be recognized as a member of that nation. recognized by its members and recognized by other parties outside of your particular nation. So the families of nations, the international family, the nation of the United States of America, he set a process so all of these political plenipotentiaries will know and acknowledge and have an obligation to by how he set the process up. So right, wrong, or indifferent, if it was the right process or not, it's the process that's been recognized for over 100 years by a master, by a prophet. He knew what he was doing. So, to answer the other part of your question, and this is law, it's not emotion. To be acknowledged, for your nationality to be Moorish American, the only way that that could be a true fact is if you went through the process that Prophet Noble Drew Ali established. He established the organization referred to as the Moorish Science Temple of America. He didn't set up an organization as Moorish this and Moorish that. So to understand Moorish this and Moorish that can't establish a standard process that overrides the process that was already established. You understand? The only person who can change a process is the person who has jurisdiction to change it. And when you're dealing with law and order, there's only certain people in any government that has the power to change a process. It's called checks and balances. Even Trump being chief commander, he don't have the authority to just change something because he wanted changed. There's still a process that has to be done to change something, even from his perspective. It has to be approved by the Senate or Congress, etc. There's a process. So I can't set something up tomorrow and call it whatever and change the process to it. I don't have that authority. I still have checks and balances. Drew Ali set up checks and balances, even within the Moorish Science Temple. You could be the Grand Sheikh of how, it doesn't matter how long you've been a Grand Sheikh. You have to follow a process. Drew Ali didn't set up wazirs and amirs. Great Seal did that through CMB and ETC operations. That's a separate process that denotes to an auxiliary of the Moorish Science Temple of America. It's an auxiliary. And when you go into the preamble of Great Seal National Association of Moorish Affairs, it explains that. The Great Seal National Association. It's an association. Means that it's associated with. It's an auxiliary. It's not to override the process. It has a purpose, and it was a great gesture and great auxiliary when it was founded. The purpose was needed because the temple abandoned their duties and their obligations to what Drew Ali set up within his process. So Great Seal was only established because the temples did not want to do what they were supposed to do. So Great Seal set it up, a process so Moors can still have a vehicle to navigate. But it was not to override it. Moors got it twisted down the line because they didn't want to meet the standards and the process that Drew Ali founded. They just immediately ran with a misinterpretation of what the auxiliary was there for. This is why a lot of Moors that say they down with Great Seal and all of this and whatever came up out of it will not give you the rudder and sextant that came along with it. Because it explains it in these documents. that you can't even be a member without first having a nationality card from a temple. But most people who say they run in Great Seal will tell you don't even go to the temple, which is in violation of Great Seal preamble. But most of them are saying it because they don't know what the preamble is. They don't know what it was geared to, because whoever brought them in misled them. And now you got the blind leading the blind. Where deep down in heart they think they're doing the right thing, but they have misinformation, which they're not doing the right thing. It's incomplete. And then other organizations formed on top of that, and now everybody went in a different direction without having no affiliation to all of this. So you can't say your nationality is Moorish American without being tied to the temple. You can't say that you're a member of the Free National Republic of the United States of America if you have not came through the regency of the Moorish Science Temple of America. By law. I'm not saying about what other people would agree to. I'm talking about by law. By constitutional law. And upon a supreme challenge, they will still put you into the classification of Negro, Black, and Colored. And that's going to wrap up this meeting. Islam?
Islam.
You want the chair? Islam. When we close it, or you got something you want to do? Islam. Thank Sheikahs, because she just gave me another hour to demonstrate. Islam. We're going to have room temperature nourishment tonight. It's the way it should be. Islam. No, but why she doing, what you do? What you wanted the World Dictionary or Islam? Islam. 1 second, Sister Mo. Islam. One last thing while she doing that. Another definition of Moor means land. I didn't go into it, but it's necessary for the purpose of this recording. There more land, moorland, or more land. More also means land, and it is proper. It's not. It is proper. That's not what you was going to demonstrate, was it? All right. All right, cool. Now I'm going to go into that. But just keep in mind, just for your notes and your highlight, more also means land. Yes. They will say it means marshland. Marshland means not moorland, means wasteland. So when they make reference to more or more land in modern day times, they're saying that more land is land that's undevelopable. Undevelopable. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's undeveloped.
Yes.
Wasteland.
Yes. I.e. wasteland, meaning it's marshland, means that there's no foundation to it. It's too marshy or it has too much water. This is what the sister was talking about earlier. Sister Picola talking about the Atlantis. All right. So when some of the land sank, parts of the land sank. Parts that were strong enough to establish a structure or foundations was formed. They formed islands out of those lands. Anything that's considered an island was once a part of the land. There's areas and lands this doesn't meet the standards of putting an island on, or maybe not be big enough for a structure, period. They will refer that as moorland. But that's in modern day meaning. But America is still moorland if you understand the concept. Lemuria is moorland or moorlands. It means the same thing. Whether the land could be developed or not The land itself means more. Land means more from some opinions and some definitions from ancient times. So the name of the land is the name of the people. So when you talked about Asia, meaning land, it also fits with Asiatic. And Asiatic Moor also describes the land of the Moors, which doesn't designate any specific territory, but just abroad. But America is still more land. Moreland Farms, absolutely. Islam. Everybody got that? Islam. Islam. So with that, we're going to officially close. Sister Mo, before we read the laws, you want to do your donation? Islam Moors, I want to give an announcement as well. Brother Omari is sharing a solar return with myself. His was Wednesday. Islam. Islam, man. Whatever it is, either or. What would y'all like to do? Online or not online? Not online? Islam. Islam. So while they're in the closing process, I'm going to bring Brother Omari back up, and he's going to close out the meeting. Please give him your attention. Thank you.
Islam family. Additional laws for the Moorish Americans by the Prophet Nubu Ali. Act 1. Grand sheikhs and governors and heads of all temples, all businesses. Each said temple must be approved by the Prophet Nubu Ali before acting upon by any member, let it be finance, property, or any line of life that will cause the members to sacrifice, finance, etc. That will cause the support of any group of members. Any former officer that violates these laws is subject to be removed from his or her office under heavy restrictions, etc. by the Prophet or the Grand Sheikh. Act 2. All members are to attend their adab meetings and their public meetings promptly. If a member is found standing around on their meeting period, they shall be fined 50 cents on the first case, and on the second will be fined $1, which will go into your emergency fund. If a member is working, his or her monthly dues must be paid, and if he or she has money in the bank, they must subscribe for as much as he or she is able to the Moorish Uplifting Fund, because it takes finance to uplift the nation. Act 3. It is the lawful and divine duty of every good member, if he or she are able in finance, to aid me in saving the nation, and if he or she does not, they are enemy to the cause of uplifting their own people, and justice must catch you. Let it be he or she according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, as I have the power invested in my hands, and I will have to enforce the law in order to save the nation. Act 4. All members, while up making a public speech, must not use any assertion against the American flag or speak radical against the church or any member of any organized group, because we are here to teach love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Act 5. All members must promptly attend their meetings and send their children to school, and their teacher must conform his or herself to the questionnaire, and let every member exercise their 5 senses who is able to do so, because out of your Sunday schools becomes guiders of the nation. Act 6. With us, all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and parcel of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians, because these names were given to slaves by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live and the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Nubu Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites whom inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and parcel of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name faithful. Husband, you must support your wife. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet Noble Ali through the guidance of his father, God Allah. Islam. Meeting is now closed. Before we do close out from offline, I just ask that all members rise, face the east, feet at a 45-degree angle, 5 fingers up on the left, 2 on the right. Repeat after Sister Jamila. May Allah bind our hearts and minds back to our ancient forefathers, divine freedom principles. And this we ask in the holy name and the 7 heavenly. Amen.
Islam. Islam, please nobody move. Everybody be still, please. Can